all I got now is strength. But maybe if I keep singing, maybe I'll get it. That's what I...
They called her the Queen of Rock and Roll, a woman whose voice could tear open the sky itself, raw, unfiltered, volcanic. Janis Joplin didn't just sing a song, she bled it. She let the world hear every bruise, every hunger, every fragile cry she tried to hide. But the world didn't love Janis for who she was. They loved her for how much it hurt when she opened her mouth, because the truth behind that legendary voice was a girl who never believed she deserved to be loved in the first place. We'd like to remember Janis in posters. Wild hair, bow of feathers, whiskey in hand, laughing loud. But look closer. Behind the laugh was loneliness. Behind the confidence was a wound she never outran. Behind the spotlight was a darkness she carried from childhood to her final breath. We all think we know the story. Janis Joplin, the brilliant, chaotic blues siren who burned too hot and died too young. But what if the tragedy didn't start in the spotlight? What if it started back in small-town Texas, long before the stage lights found her? What if fame didn't destroy Janis, but simply magnified the pain that was already there? Tonight, we're going past the myth, past the legend, past the easy narrative of rockstar excess. We're going to meet Janis, the young woman who just wanted to be seen, the girl who sang like fire because she spent her whole life feeling frozen out. This isn't a story about addiction. It's about loneliness. It's about how the world applauds the broken-hearted soul, but never learns how to save them. And it's about how a voice that could shake stadiums could not silence the echo of being called ugly, unwanted, not enough. Because no matter how loud she sang, Janis never believed the applause was real. Tonight, we're telling the story they tried to bury. Welcome to Shadows of Rock, where legends live loud, even in silence. We tell the untold stories, the hidden struggles, and the raw truth behind the icons who shaped rock history. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Wasn't Meant to Shine, Port Arthur, Texas. A place of oil refineries, Sunday sermons, and the quiet expectation that everyone should look, act, and fit the same. For most people, it was home. For Janis Joplin, it was exile. From the beginning, Janis didn't fit the mold. She was loud, curious, sharp-tongued, quick to laugh, and too unashamed to pretend. In a world that wanted girls to be delicate, polite, and invisible, Janis was a spark in a field of dry grass. And sparks make people nervous. At school, they didn't just tease her, they targeted her. Her weight, her acne, her laugh that carried just a little too far, her love for blues music, black music, as they sneered, in a time and place where that alone could get you ostracized. They told her she was ugly, weird, wrong. They didn't just want to hurt her. They wanted to convince her she didn't deserve to exist in the same world they did. So she learned to armor herself with noise, laughter as defense, shock value as survival. If they were going to call her a freak, she'd become one by choice. Better to be outrageous than invisible. But there was a secret underneath all that fire. She wanted love. Not the applause, not the attention. Love. Deep, steady, unconditional. The kind she would spend her entire life searching for and never quite believe when she found it. One day, the school held a cruel vote. The ugliest man on campus. Someone nominated Janis, and she won. That kind of wound doesn't fade. It echoes. It becomes a voice inside your own head. Years later, when she stood on stage in front of thousands screaming her name, part of her was still that girl in Texas, wondering if they were laughing at her. But pain can ferment into something powerful, and Janis discovered her release, her weapon, her salvation in the blues. When she sang Bessie Smith, Lead Belly, Big Mama Thornton, something happened. Her voice didn't just carry emotion, it unleashed it. All the hurt, all the longing, all the rage at being unseen. Music didn't just give Janis a voice, it gave her permission to exist. And yet, even as her voice rose, the wound followed, because the world never forgets who it taught you to be. Chapter 2, Running from Texas. There comes a moment in every wounded soul's life when staying hurts more than leaving. For Janis, that moment arrived like a quiet breaking. No explosion, just a realization. If she didn't get out, she would disappear. So she left Port Arthur, the town that shaped her and scarred her, with the urgency of someone running from a fire others couldn't see. She headed towards something bigger, something freer. The places she read about in magazines and whispered about to the few friends who understood her. Austin, San Francisco, anywhere but home. Austin at first seemed like oxygen. Coffee houses, poets, blues bars buzzing with sound and sweat. Places where being different wasn't a crime, it was the point. She sang in small rooms filled with cigarette smoke and restless hearts. And when she sang, people didn't mock her. They leaned in. They felt her. For the first time, Janis wasn't too much. She was exactly enough. But freedom has shadows. And in the corners of bar rooms and rented apartments lived temptation. The city was wild, ecstatic, reckless, lawless in all the ways Port Arthur was controlled. And Janis, hungry for belonging, for escape, for quiet in her own mind, fell into the currents of it. Pills first, then heroin and southern comfort, the warm numbness that made the world softer, slower, quieter. Addiction wasn't glamour for Janis, it was anesthesia. The bullies were gone, but the voice they gave her stayed. And the drugs helped turn the volume down. She grew thinner. Her clothes started hanging off her. Her laughter got stranger. Her eyes got distant. Her friends back home didn't even recognize her when rumors drifted back. And so, for the first time, Janis came home defeated. Not triumphant. Not a star. Just a girl broken by the world she thought would save her. Her family tried. They pleaded. They begged her to get clean, and slowly, painfully, she did. For a while. But the fire was still inside her. The need to be heard. The need to prove herself to the town that tried to erase her. And when she got the call, an invitation to join a rising San Francisco band called Big Brother and the Holding Company, she didn't hesitate. Her voice was about to explode into history, but the wound was coming with her, and the world was not ready for the storm Janis Joplin was about to become. Chapter 3, The Firestorm on Stage. San Francisco was not Texas. It was a different planet entirely. A place where misfits weren't just tolerated, they were celebrated. Haight-Ashbury in the late 1960s was a swirling tapestry of incense smoke, street musicians, protest chants, and colors too bright to describe. It was freedom. Chaotic, messy, beautiful freedom. And into that fever dream walked Janis Joplin. Big Brother and the Holding Company wasn't polished. They weren't technically perfect, but they were alive. A band built on improvisation, trust, and raw, unfiltered energy. They needed a voice powerful enough to match their lightning, and they found it in Janis. The first time she stepped on stage with them, the room changed. What she lacked in refinement, she made up for in pure, emotional voltage. She didn't just sing, she poured herself out, like every lyric had been carved directly from her ribcage. People didn't just hear Janis, they felt her in the gut. Her voice cracked. It broke. It scraped against itself. It didn't care about pretty. It cared about truth. She'd close her eyes, clutch the microphone like it was the only thing tethering her to earth, and let out a howl so full of pain and wanting that audiences froze. Not in shock, but in recognition. Because Janis wasn't performing. She was confessing. And for once in her life, people loved her for the very things she had been taught to hide. The crowds grew. The rumors spread. Clubs turned into packed halls into festival stages, and then came the moment that sealed her name in rock history. The Monterey Pop Festival, 1967. Standing before a sea of thousands, the California sun beating down like a spotlight from God, Janis took the stage and sang Ball and Chain. Mama Cass, watching from the audience, jaw open, hand over her heart, mouthed one word as Janis sang, "Wow." After her final note, the silence hung heavy. Not the silence of indifference, the silence of awe. Then came the explosion. Cheers, screams, thunderous applause. For the first time, Janis believed the world was really listening. But fame is a predator disguised as love. And just as the world opened its arms to her, the old wound whispered, "They'll leave when they see who you really are." So she sang harder, lived louder, burned brighter, and the flame began to consume her from the inside. Chapter 4. The Velvet Crown and the Invisible Cage. Fame is a strange kind of love. It looks like adoration, devotion, worship, but it asks for everything and gives nothing back. After Monterey, Janis Joplin was no longer just a rising talent. She was a phenomenon. Photographers chased her, journalists begged for quotes, music executives promised the world, fans clung to her like she was salvation itself. On the outside, it looked like everything she had ever wanted. But what fame gave her in applause, it stole from her in peace. Big Brother and the holding company was suddenly in the spotlight, and that spotlight revealed tension, friction, pressure. The band that had once felt like home, a tribe of equals, was now orbiting around one blazing star, Janis. She didn't want to overshadow them, but when you set yourself on fire to be loved, you can't be surprised when everyone gathers closer for the warmth. Her voice was becoming legend, but her heart was becoming fragile. The louder the crowds got, the quieter her sense of self became. She wanted to be loved, but she didn't know how to be held. Her managers urged her to go solo, to step out of the band, to claim the crown that fate had carved for her. They dressed it up like empowerment, like destiny, like freedom. But Janis knew the truth. Leaving Big Brother meant leaving the last place she had ever felt like she belonged. She did it anyway, and here is the re-engagement moment. The contradiction most people don't know at the height of her fame. Janis Joplin tried to quit music entirely. She dreamed of escaping to Brazil with a man she had fallen deeply, achingly in love with. A love so simple and gentle, it terrified her. She talked about marriage, a quiet life, a life without stages or spotlights or endless hunger. But love, like everything in her life, slipped through her fingers. He left, or she ran, or fate simply refused to let her have peace. Accounts differ, but the wound remained the same. Janis returned to America, returned to the stage, returned to the only thing she knew how to do, turn heartbreak into spectacle. The audience saw the feather boas, the wild laughter, the whiskey bottle raised like a banner of rebellion. They did not see the girl who always sat alone after the show. She had the crown now, but it was made of velvet wrapped around barbed wire, and every time the spotlight hit her, it pressed a little deeper. Chapter 5. Loving. Too hard for this world. Janis Joplin didn't fall in love the way most people do. She crashed into it, all at once, body and soul, as if love were the only cure for a life lived in open wound. And maybe for her, it was. She once said, On stage, I make love to 25,000 people. Then I go home alone. That sentence wasn't poetry. It was truth. Because in the quiet after the spotlight, when the applause faded and the dressing room emptied, Janis was still that girl from Port Arthur, terrified she wasn't enough. So she loved with desperation, with hunger, with the frantic urgency of someone who believed every love could be her last chance to be chosen. She chased the dream of being held, really held, by someone who saw Janis, not the star, not the myth, not the wild woman with the whiskey grin, but her, the bruised heart, the trembling longing, the ache to belong to someone, somewhere. And she found people who tried. Poets, drifters, musicians, men who were just as lost as she was. But loving a storm is hard. And Janis was a storm. She loved intensely, and intensely meant inconsistently. She wanted closeness, but closeness meant being seen. And being seen meant risking the unbearable possibility of rejection. So just when love got too real, she pulled back, or pushed harder, or disappeared into heroin's soft fog and whiskey's warm numbness. She would fall into arms like she was falling from a cliff, but always with the fear that the ground would rise up to meet her, and sometimes it did. There was one man, the sailor, the wanderer. Chapter 6, The Price of Becoming a Legend. By now, the name Janis Joplin was everywhere. Posters, magazine covers, radio stations spinning her voice like a siren call across the country. She wasn't just a performer anymore. She was a symbol, the wild, uncontained spirit of the counterculture movement. But symbols don't get to be human. The machine of fame was devouring her, piece by piece. Record executives didn't care about her heartache. They cared about the sound, the product, the voice that could make people feel like their insides were catching fire. She became a commodity, even to the people who swore they loved her. And the more success she found, the more alone she became. Every stage was bigger, every spotlight brighter, every room louder. But after the show, the silence was deafening. The crowd saw the feathers, the beads, the wild hair dripping with sweat and defiance. They saw a woman who looked fearless, unstoppable, larger than life. They didn't see her hands shaking backstage. They didn't hear her ask whispered questions. Do they really love me? Was I good enough? Would they still want me if I didn't scream so hard? The world demanded Janis at maximum intensity. Every moment. And so to meet their expectations, she began to push her voice past its limits, her body past its limits, her heart past its breaking point. Heroin became a familiar companion again, southern comfort, a constant presence, a bottle on the piano, beside the bed, by the side of the stage. On tour, she ran harder, partied longer, sang louder. Her performances became both resurrection and crucifixion. Ecstasy and agony in equal measure, because every night she was trying to do the impossible, to sing loud enough to drown out the silence inside her. But the silence always returned. There were moments, rare, fleeting, fragile, when the world got close to seeing her truth, a hotel hallway late at night, a whispered confession to a bandmate, a phone call home to her parents, voice small and tired, asking if they were proud. She was chasing something she could never name, a belonging she could feel only for a few seconds on stage, the exact moment when her voice cracked and the crowd broke open with it. In those moments, she wasn't alone, and then the song would end. By 1970, the world saw a legend ascending. But inside, Janis was unraveling, thread by thread. The price of becoming immortal is that you stop being alive. Chapter 7, The Last Hotel Room. Los Angeles, October 1970. The landmark Motor Hotel, a place where musicians and ghosts crossed paths without ever noticing each other. Janis was in the middle of recording what many believed would be her masterpiece, Pearl, the album where she finally sounded not just powerful, but in control, focused, clear, hopeful. For the first time in years, she was trying to get clean, trying to build something that would last, trying to stay alive. She had a band that adored her, a producer who respected her talent, tracks that shimmered with both ferocity and tenderness. And she had found love again, or something close. A man who wrote her letters, who kissed her gently, who promised to return. For a moment, a brief, impossible moment, Janis seemed to be standing at the edge of healing. But healing is fragile, especially when the world has taught you to measure your worth in applause. The studio loved the new Janis, sharp, soulful, still wild, but grounded in purpose. The vocals she laid down were electric. Me and Bobby McGee carried a warmth and ache she had never captured before. But the hours after recording were harder. The hotel room was quiet, too quiet. She was surrounded by musicians and friends, and yet she felt the familiar chill of loneliness. The kind that lives not in the room, but in the chest. Because even with success within reach, the voice inside her still repeated the words that had been carved into her back in Texas. They will leave you. They always leave you. That weekend, her lover didn't come back when he said he would. A small heartbreak. But for Janis, heartbreaks were never small. She called friends. No one answered. She went looking for company. Most were busy, or pretending to be. And that old whisper returned. The stage loves you more than people do. The heroine that had once been a distant shadow returned, offered by familiar hands for just one night, just to take the edge off, just to feel okay. But the heroine wasn't the same. It was stronger now, purified, unforgiving. She didn't know. On the night of October 3rd, Janis Joplin walked back to her hotel room alone. The hallway was quiet, carpet muffling footsteps, a key turning in the lock. She didn't leave a note. She didn't make a statement. She didn't cry out. She simply laid down. And the world lost one of the most powerful voices it has ever known. Not to drugs, but to loneliness. She was 27. Chapter 8. Legacy. The echo that never fades. After the news broke, the world reacted the only way it knew how. Shock, mourning, headlines, memorials. The same culture that had cheered her rise now wept for her fall. But grief has a way of simplifying lives into symbols. And Janis deserved more than to be remembered as just another member of the 27 Club. Her legacy is not the needle, not the bottle, not the tragedy. Her legacy is the truth she tore from her own bones and offered to the world. Janis Joplin was one of the first women in rock who didn't apologize for her voice. She didn't soften herself to fit expectations. She didn't hide behind elegance or grace or polite femininity. She was raw. She was ferocious. She was hungry for life. She became a blueprint and a warning. A blueprint for every artist who came after her, who dared to be messy, emotional, loud, and real. Without Janis, there is no Stevie Nicks, no Alanis Morissette, no PJ Harvey, no Amy Winehouse. She didn't open the door, she kicked it off its hinges, but she was also a warning. A mirror held up to a society that loves to devour its artists. Because Janis didn't die from excess, she died from emptiness, from the ache of always being almost but never quite loved in the way she needed. We celebrate artists like Janis for their vulnerability, but we rarely ask what that vulnerability costs them. We ask them to be open wounds for our comfort. We call their pain genius. We clap, we cheer, we demand more, and then we're surprised when the wound never heals. Janis's voice lives on because it was never just sound. It was memory. Every bruise she ever carried, every longing she ever felt, every cry she never spoke aloud. Even now, when her songs play, something happens. Time pauses, walls fall. The listener remembers some ache inside themselves they thought they'd forgotten. She reminds us that we are breakable, but also that we can sing anyway. Janis Joplin didn't survive the spotlight, but she changed it. She made it possible for a new kind of artist to exist. One who didn't have to be polished, pretty, or perfect to be powerful. Her legacy is this: you don't have to be beautiful to be loved. You just have to be true.